My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Ghostbusters Afterlife. And this will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch my review because I will be going in depth. I figured I might as well make this a spoiler review considering that everyone else on the planet has already seen it. Like, I'm the last person to watch it. And I'm not the biggest Ghostbusters fan. In fact, I don't think it should have ever become a franchise. I do like the first movie. I think it's entertaining. I think the cast is great. And I think there's some funny moments. But I don't think it's as good as people say. It's a perfectly fine, entertaining movie, but I don't think it deserves the classic status it has. I know, blasphemy. I know many people would disagree with me there, but I gotta be honest. Ghostbusters 2 is fine. It's entertaining enough. But it is the exact same movie as the first one. The 2016 one that everyone despises, I don't think it's as bad as people say. Like, it's not really all that funny. The cast is bad for the most part. But Chris Hemsworth in that movie is hilarious. Like, he is the standout in it, easily. So, he's able to save the movie to the point where I can't say it's terrible, but it's not a good movie. And after watching Ghostbusters Afterlife, this is my least favorite movie in the Ghostbusters franchise. And I'm very disappointed to say that. Like, when I heard that they were going to approach this movie similar to E.T. and Super 8 and It and Stranger Things, I'm like, you know what? That is the best way to move this franchise forward. But the actual execution of it was just underwhelming, to say the least. It was lacking any sort of charm that this movie so desperately needed. Let's talk about the cast. I do like Paul Rudd. I think he's a very charismatic and likable actor. He's very entertaining to watch in everything that he's in. And he's fine in this movie, but there's nothing about his performance here that makes it stand out from any other Paul Rudd performance. Then you've got Carrie Coon, Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace, and Celeste O'Connor, who are all fine in this movie. They don't do a bad job, but they don't do much to elevate it either. Then we've got Logan Kim, who I didn't really like at all, and maybe it's just my bias showing, but as soon as I heard his name was Podcast, I was just like, oh, I'm going to hate this character solely based on his name. Like, what a stupid name. Why would you pick that? Oh. And it doesn't help that the cast plays cliche characters that we've seen countless times, and there's nothing about their performances or about how these characters are written that really allow them to stand out. They just feel like cliches and nothing more. And it doesn't help that this movie just didn't hit me on an emotional level in any way. Whenever I was meant to feel sad or moved, I never did. Whenever the movie's trying to be thrilling and exciting, I never felt it. And this movie's never funny. Like, Ghostbusters is a comedy. And for me to not laugh a single time while watching this one, it's undeniably disappointing. But I think my biggest issue with this movie is just how big of a mess it feels like. It doesn't feel like they have a plan in mind for this movie. It doesn't feel like they have a point A to point Z. It just feels so made up on the spot. It feels like you're watching improv on the screen. You know, there's one great piece of screenwriting advice from the South Park guys who said, instead of using and then to go from one scene to the next, use the words therefore. Because that way you're making everything feel connected and it shows a cause and effect throughout the movie. And just none of that is on display here. It just feels, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. It's just like, well, why are these things happening? What's the connecting tissue? And it just feels so random. It just feels like a complete mess. And it all builds to this finale that is so redundant of the original. Like, first we get introduced to this one character played by J.K. Simmons, I believe, and I'm just like, what's the purpose of this guy here? Like, what's he doing? And then the Ghost's plans go into effect, and it's literally the exact same finale as the original Ghostbusters. Instead of taking place on a skyscraper, it's taking place in this isolated town, but make no mistake, it's the exact same ending. And it's just like, I've already seen this. Like, you know, in the other one, how they got Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver to be the two gods that mate with each other. Well, in this one, they get Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon too, and they turn into the dogs as well. And it's just like, are they really redoing the original movie? Like, no, I want to see a different ghost, a different plan at the end. And it's just, I can't believe they actually went for the exact same ghosts or demons or whatever you want to call them, and the exact same plan at the end of this movie. And to make things even worse, they're talking in the movie about how this is the end of the world event. Like, this is the event that all other events have been building to. That first Ghostbusters movie, nope, that was just nearly a stepping stone to get to where we are at the end of this movie. So it kind of undercuts the original movie's ending. But not just that, you never feel the stakes or the tension. You never feel like the world's actually going to end here. It just all feels so been there, done that. It just feels cliche in the very worst of ways. Like, it may look like the end of the world, but not once does it actually feel like it. And also, can I just say that whenever someone sees a ghost in this movie, they don't react properly. Like, if I was just walking around and I see this blue little ghost thing, I'd be like, ah, that's a blue little ghost thing. And no one reacts like that in this movie. They just keep going about their day, or they then take out a gun and try to get the ghost. And it's just like, you're not even reacting. And that's actually a huge issue, because so many movies that capture that sense of awe and wonder is because the main characters react to it. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the entire first half of that movie is world building. And the reason why that first half feels as magical as it does isn't just because of the music, even though that does play a big role in it, but it's because Harry's looking around and being like, oh, wow, this is amazing. You need that. When people don't react, it just feels like very mundane. It feels like this is another day in their life. So I thought that aspect was really bad. I also really hated the music in this movie. Like, it sounded like the music from an 80s movie in the very worst of ways. It just got that doop-da-doop-da-doop-da-doop-da-doop sound to it. Like, it feels really cheesy in a way that didn't work with the vibes this movie was going for at all. And okay, let's just talk about fan service for a bit. I hate fan service. Back in 2015, Star Wars The Force Awakens came out, and everybody was so excited to see Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher on the big screen again. And since then, I feel like movie studios have taken the wrong notes from that, because now we're just getting all these legacy actors returning in movies that simply don't need them to return. Like, Jurassic World Dominion comes out this year, and we've got Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum coming back, and I couldn't care less. I haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet. That's right, I'm the one and only person, but I'm perfectly aware that all the legacy actors come back. And it's just like, is this really what movies are coming to? Just getting some old actors to return to the franchises so the crowd can lose it when they see them and be like, hey, that was them in that movie that I loved a long time ago. Because I just feel like that's the laziest thing to do, because you're not doing any work yourself. You're relying on a previously great movie. And I don't like the fact that they brought back the original cast. First, I want to say that, I forget the character's name, but when we see Dan Aykroyd for the first time and he picks up the phone and he's talking to McKenna Grace's character, I thought that entire moment was awful. Like, she calls him and he's just like, oh, well, this is where this guy is now, that's where this guy is now. You know, instead of hanging up like any normal person would. And then he goes ahead and tells her his life story, what happened to the group. Just exposition overload. And you're just like, really? And then they come in at the end, and it's supposed to be this huge moment, but I was just waiting for it. I'm like, oh, all hope is lost. The heroes are losing, so they're going to come in 3, 2, 1. And it's just... Look, I like the original cast, but to see them in this movie and to see them so shoehorned in, it feels forced. And it just takes you out of it. You know, like, I don't watch the Book of Boba Fett, but I know everyone's losing their mind because there's so many characters that people love, and I don't think that's good storytelling. Just throwing characters in a property, being like, look, it's the characters you love. I don't think it makes worlds feel bigger and more expansive. I just feel like it makes them feel smaller. It makes the franchises feel reliant on stories that have already been told, on characters that we've already seen their arc conclude. And I hate it. I just hate everything about it. And then we got CGI Harold Ramis. And I'll admit the CGI is great. The fact that he's a ghost really helps with the Uncanny Valley property to it. But I gotta say, I'm not a fan of this trend of bringing back dead actors. I think it's immoral. I think it's wrong. I don't think it's ethical. Like, just re-losing someone's face in their body after they're gone. No, that's wrong. I heard a few years ago that they were going to recreate James Dean and have the CGI James Dean be in his own movie, and I don't think that's still happening, but if they did, it's wrong. Like, you watch movies all the time, but you gotta draw the line at a certain point. Like, I don't care if people use makeup to try to look a different way. I don't care if they use CGI to create dragons or creatures or for green screen sake, but to use CGI to make it look like a dead person is actually alive, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Okay, what else can I say? When the police chief says, "Who you gonna call?" I cringed. And when the marshmallows girls showed up at Walmart, it was just such a bad fan service. Like, I wanted to like this movie, and I like what they were going for with the same vibes that Super 8 and It had. But they just threw that all away and just made a movie that catered to the fan base in the worst possible way. This movie is never thrilling or exciting, it's never funny, and all the emotional moments just felt completely hollow. Because it's introducing these characters into a movie that they had no purpose being in. They had no arc in this movie. They were just thrown in there so people could clap and cheer that they recognize those actors, that it's the same people from the original. And it's just so transparent what the studio is going for, and I hate the fact that movies are becoming more and more like this. The characters were as cliche as they get, the performances were meh, the music was bad. There is a good movie here, but any potential of that fell apart the second they decided to make the last act the exact same last act in the original, and the second they decided to rely on fan service. If they didn't go in those two routes, this movie could have been decent. But they didn't, so it isn't. Also, like I said, lots of this movie just feels entirely random. But yeah, I didn't like this movie, so I'm going to go ahead and give Ghostbusters Afterlife a 3 out of 10. That 3 out of 10 might be being a bit too generous, but I'm in a generous mood today, so 3 out of 10 it is. But have you seen Ghostbusters Afterlife? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin, out.